It's Coming, an introduction of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Larry Wilson. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. It's coming. A laugh, a sigh, a smile, a tear, a giggle, a sob, and full-page reproductions of the greatest collection of art, the Whiz-Bang Girls in sepia colors. The winter annual of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Pedigreed Follies of 1921 to 1922, on sale in October. All new jokes, jests, and jingles. Captain Billy's Advice to the Lovelorn. The Smokehouse Poetry, comprising a collection of the best red-blooded poems in the world. Republication of The Blue Velvet Band and The Face on the Barroom Floor. Toledo Slim, Lasca, Evolution, and Johnny and Frankie. 4 times as large and 4 times as great. Only 4 months to wait. Introduction. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, America's Magazine of Wit, Humor, and Philosophy, June 1921, Volume 2, Number 21, published monthly at Robbinsdale, Minnesota. We have but room for one sole loyalty, and that is loyalty to the American people. Theodore Roosevelt. Edited by a Spanish and World War veteran and dedicated to the fighting forces of the United States. End of introduction and dedication.
Section 2 of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Drippings from the Faucet. Oh, for a modern James Whitcomb Riley! Could the incomparable Hoosier poet be with us today, what a masterpiece he could make out of the ordinary news of the day. With such material at hand as this from the columns of the Chicago Herald-Examiner, he could bring tears to the eyes of those with fond reminiscences. Under the heading, Last One in Chicago Destroyed by Fire, the newspaper states, the last one in Chicago burned down last night. The fire engine got around to the backyard of 1102 Hastings Street, too late. Truly, brevity is the soul of wit. A news article in the daily papers say a Chicago woman has filed suit against her husband on the grounds that he refused to pare her toenails, and the husband comes back with a countercharge that she smeared her face with cold cream to such an extent that he'd get it tangled up in his hair during the night. To our mind, this suit opens up some wonderful possibilities, especially, as Mr. Stillman would say, when the supply of Indian guides gives out. Supposing, as our London co-scribe says, a woman wedded to a Highlander discovers after the nuptials that her husband refused to shave the hair off his calves, might she not be able to file her divorce with reasonable hope of success? Again, we have the man who, when taking a bath, within earshot of his wife's bedroom, insists on singing unbearable songs of the type the Yanks sang in France. She's a mademoiselle for mom and tears, who hasn't been kissed for 40 years. Hinky pinky parlez-vous. Surely a Chicago court would grant her a split from her spouse, and a husband who would bite his wife's mole also might be in danger of being divorced by a woman who believed she was entitled to a less emotional husband. Twice, by the urgent requests from ardent defenders of the fair sex, Whiz-Bang has reproduced The Pedigreed Persian Cat from its issue of May last year. You'll remember it, the story prose of the perfumed kitty who wandered out the back door for air and was lured away by an alley tomcat, and who, upon her return later, told her kittens their paw was a traveling man. We've been waiting patiently for some traveling man to register his protest and step up with straight dope to refute intimation that a feline member of the fraternity enticed the perfumed pussy over the primrose path. And now we have it, a poem in answer from the pen of one who signs Josh M. Along. I resent the intimation that a member of my profession was to blame, he writes. The original poem is propaganda to whitewash the reputation of a loose and unprincipled female, even if she is only a cat. Therefore, I am writing the following true version. This Persian kitty, perfumed and fair, did not go out on the porch for air, but she saw that tomcat taking a stroll, and she laid a plan to get his roll. For she saw that he was a country swell, who would fall for any tale she'd tell. And while acting so sweet and innocent, she was full of guile and devilement. Then she led him along to a quiet spot, where they bring it along at $1 a bot. And while he spent his hard-earned tin, she stole his watch and his diamond pin. And when she had him as clean as a bone, sneaked off with her lover and left him alone, hungry and footsore to trod the way back to the farm and the new-mown hay. After reading the accounts in the Saturday Blade of the Stillman divorce case, our hired man Gus asks me if he can have the job as Indian guide at my Pequot, Minnesota cabin resort this summer and fall. Gus, however, is doomed to disappointment because I have engaged a real half-breed Indian for the job. Although, as Gus, our hired man, says, Deacon Miller, my neighbor, doesn't like my whiz-bang and claims he tears it up outside his door and lets the wind scatter the pieces of paper all over his wheat field, we'll have to give the deacon credit for rearing a bunch of ladylike cows. One of the deacon's bossies broke through the barbed wire fence which separates his pasture from mine while I was at Pequot. The cow unceremoniously walked into my house through the open door, looked at the pictures on the wall, and then walked up to the mirror to see if her horns were on straight. Not finding anyone at home, the cow, as is the custom, left her card and departed. Johnny Beaton, noted Minnesota bohemian, told a rather good story the other day while he and I were shopping for schnapps in Minneapolis. During the inspection of our purchases, Johnny, who hails from Rainier, Minnesota, on the Canadian boundary, said he had recently engaged in a rip-roaring poker game. In this game were two Englishmen from the Canuck side of the line. The Englishman always referred to a $5 bill as a pound. "I'll raise you £2, said the first Englishman. "I'll make it 5 bloody more pounds, replied the second. About this time a local bootlegger, who had been testing his own product, blurted out as he pushed in his wad of money in the center of the table, "I'll raise you 3 tons. The bootlegger hauled in the pot. End of section 2.
Section 3 of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W. H. Fawcett. Our Movie Gossips. Eleanor Glynn is pursued by the ghost of 3 weeks, and the gossips are trying to catch her flirting. Mary and Doug aid Benny Zeidman in courtship for Marjorie Daw. Rudolph Valentino turns the tables of his separation wife, Jane Acker. Bill Hart and Jane Novak may get married and live in Spanish duplex. My, what morsels of gossip we hear from our bevy of Hollywood and Los Angeles correspondents. Pity poor Eleanor Glynn. Screen folk, suspicious because England's Titian-haired authoress wrote 3 weeks, are reported sleuthing around the Los Angeles hotels and cafes and the Lasky studio trying to catch Mrs. Glynn flirting. Leastwise the gossips are busy, and the dainty morsel upon which they are chewing is none other than Mrs. Glynn's purported fondness for dancing. "Where's Mrs. Glynn?" they ask around the Lasky studio. "Oh, somewhere dancing, I suppose," comes a reply, in much the same tone as was used during the war when the ladies danced while friend-husband dodged whiz-bangs in France. Mrs. Glynn's famous novel, 3 weeks, might have been her worst personal faux pas. At the great Navy Ball in the Ambassador Hotel, she remained for the most part of the evening on the balcony overlooking the ballroom floor, accompanied by one of her youthful actor admirers. And as her gaze passed over the heads of mere ensigns, four-stripers looked up, but feared to tread, maybe. At least, Mrs. Glynn did not dance with many, according to the correspondent of this great family journal. Mrs. Glynn is writing a new story for the Lasky Company. Of course, the Lasky people aren't telling around just yet what the story is to be about, but the gossips whisper that it's to be like this. A girl, born of a Russian dancer mother and a staid American father, grows up into a beautiful woman. However, everyone who knew of her mother's wild, wild life fear the girl will develop into the same sort of female. But she never does, until, way out west, she is bitten by a snake. Then she becomes so wild. Just what form her wildness takes has not yet been ascertained. At any rate, the hero is right there at the climax wishing she wasn't wild, so he heroically sucks the poison from her wound and quiets her nerves again. It's called The Great Moment. It seems that since Mary and Doug have been married, they have turned into regular old matchmakers. They are working on all their friends. Can it be they are just now concentrating on sweet blonde Marjorie Daw, who is one of Mary Pickford's most intimate friends? Marcel Desano, the dark, handsome, and entirely morose Universal director, is believed infatuated with the fair Marjorie just now. He recently attended an informal little house dance in Hollywood and lurked in a shadowy corner all evening because Marjorie was not with him. Mary and Doug are quietly and intensively working overtime to interest Marjorie in Benny Zeidman, business manager for Doug. Now, Benny is entirely cheerful. He's a nice, unaffected little chap whom everyone likes, and they say Doug pays him some fat salary. Benny hasn't his supposed rival's mysterious south of Europe eyes and hair, but he's an enterprising live-wire Yankee. Now, Mary and Doug are a couple of sly old matchmakers. Maybe they know they will spoil everything if they urge Marjorie to choose Benny, or if they knock any of her other suitors, so they adroitly throw Benny and Marjorie together on many occasions. Whether Benny and Marjorie are aware of this or not is a mystery. Quite recently, Doug was frightfully interested in purchasing a home in Santa Barbara. Of course, it being a business matter, Zeidman, the business manager, must needs go along to inspect the property. I think they even kidded several hopeful real estate dealers into believing that Mr. Fairbanks was really intending removing his famous family to Santa Barbara. At any rate, it made it possible for them to take Marjorie and Benny to Santa Barbara for a weekend trip and throw them together for 3 complete days. Nothing has developed yet, but all know Benny's blush and his chronic suffering from shyness. Perhaps he just hasn't roused his courage. Or is handsome Desano getting in his quiet, intense, deep stuff? All Hollywood wonders. Rudolph Valentino, the handsome young Italian actor who plays the lead in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, is the husband of Jane Acker, who also plays leads in pictures. Valentino, it will be remembered, once was Joan Sawyer's dancing partner in vaudeville. Well, anyhow, the Valentino family separated about a year ago. For a time, Rudolph was heartbroken over the separation and urged his mutual friends to help him make up the difference. Just then, Jane had offers galore from film companies, and she was believed upstage and independent, and to have refused to consider Valentino for a second session. Now, lately, the tables have turned. Valentino has made a great hit in the Metro photoplay taken from the biggest seller of last year. He can just about command his own salary in filmdom from now on. And wife Janie hasn't had such an easy winter. With dozens of companies ceasing to produce, offers haven't come bounding in at an alarming rate. Or perhaps Jane didn't know husband was such a capable actor and could make such a hit. Can it be she at last realizes what a precious jewel she has lost, and that now it is Jane's turn to hope that they make up, and Valentino's to assert manly indifference toward the fair sex entirely? Hollywood wonders how it will come out. Close friends of Bill Hart say he is to marry beautiful Jane Novak, who has played so many leads in Hart pictures. All the evidence seems to point that way. Bill declared through the press that April 2 last was his final day in motion pictures. Jane will receive her final decree of divorce within a few weeks now. Bill is building onto his lovely home in Hacienda Park. The Spanish mansion now is divided into 2 sections with a long-roofed corridor running between. The new wing of rooms has lately been added to the lovely mansion. Is Bill going to be a truly modern husband and keep his own sanctum sanctorum at one end of the mansion for himself, and allow his wife to have a number of rooms in which she, of her own free will, may roam as she pleases? Most wives would never be bored with the sort of Bill who planned his romantic nest with such nicety. End of section 3, read by Tami Johnson.
Section 4 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Anthony Will. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Only 4 months. A short story. A single woman's geography. Men. Only 4 months. The Blue Velvet Band, The Face on the Barroom Floor, Johnny and Frankie, and scores of other red-blooded poems will appear in the winter annual of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Pedigreed Follies of 1921-22, which will be published in October. This year, Whiz Bang's greatest entertainer will appear 4 times the regular monthly size, and will contain, for the most part, brand new stuff, but for the benefit of new readers, stories and verse from earlier issues will be reprinted. Only 4 months to wait. Don't write for last year's annual. It was sold out within 30 days. A short story. His young wife laughed till she creaked as he slowly drank his iced tea. "You are laughing," he said, wiping his well-formed lips with the hem of the tablecloth. "Why?" "I just happened to remember," she said between gasps, "that I put the cyanide of potassium in the iced tea instead of the rat trap." It was too droll. He laughed heartily as he slid under the table. A Single Woman's Geography. Cape of Good Hope, 16. Cape Flattery, 20. Cape Lookout, 25. Cape Fear, 30. Cape Farewell, 40. Men. Men are what women marry. They have 2 feet, 2 hands, and sometimes 2 wives, but never more than 1 collar button or 1 idea at a time. Like Turkish cigarettes, men are all made of the same material, the only difference being that some are a little better distinguished than others. Generally speaking, they may be divided into 3 classes: husbands, bachelors, and widowers. Bachelors are a commodity, husbands a necessity, and widowers a luxury, especially when making love. End of section 4.
Section 5 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Kimberly Wilson. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett, Arthur Neale's page. I took my girl out last night, but when I tried to kiss her, she smacked my face and carried on something terrible. When I got back to her house with her again, I said, "Katie, what did you want to lose your head for like that tonight?" She said, "Well, maybe I did lose my head, but I kept my reputation, thank God." Something to worry about. In the new Folies Bergère show, Paris, the girlies are clad entirely in paint. News dispatches state. "Are your feet insured?" I asked a dancing girl from France. No answer. Then she said at last, "It's not that kind of dance." In any newspaper you can find pictures of charming women underneath which it reads, "Miss So-and-so, 20 years of age." Why do those printers always leave out that word "was"? As I was toying with the New York coffee cake in the Times Square automat the other day, I sighted an old friend I hadn't seen for several years. I went up to him and said, "Why, Billy, where have you been keeping yourself all these years?" He said, "Well, early in 1914 I went to Paris to study art." "Is that so?" I said. "And did you get far with your studies?" "Well," he said, "it was like this. When I arrived there in June 1914, we began by taking studies from the head. In July it was head and shoulders, and in August that darned war started. Bad luck to the Germans. To make their dresses nowadays, girls use a lot of cloth, but looks as if in future days it's hardship for the moth. He, I'd be tickled to death to teach you to swim. She, I'd be tickled to death if you did. I saw a statue yesterday, and on the quiet between us, I think it's quite correct to say the lady's name was Venus. Unveiled in such and such a year was written at the base, but those who took the veil, 'twas clear, did not again replace. If she has a past, she needn't tell, the girl in the musical show, but if she possesses a birthmark as well, it's something the whole world will know. They say that for a smart, wise lot of lads, the New York hotel clerks are hard to beat, but not always. The other day I happened to be in the Astor lobby when a pair of young newlyweds came in from the street. The rice and confetti was still over them for all to see. The happy groom went up to the desk to register. In the course of the conversation, I overheard this from the clerk. "Yes, sir. And do you want a room with twin beds?" Can you beat it? To follow horses isn't right, my father always said. So what I follow every night is chickens round instead. Reserved seats. The amorous one. Do you ever peep through the keyhole when I am sitting in there with your sister? Small brother. Sometimes when mother ain't there. Tasty stuff. His lips moved lazily over her face. "You taste so good," he sighed, and held her closer, "from this side of paradise. There is a great difference in tastes, however. No person of discrimination would compare the taste of a sun-kissed, flower-scented maiden of the prairies with the flavor of a soot-laden damsel from Pittsburgh or South Chicago." Musings of a bachelor. Don't kiss him with a snap. Be coy about it. Don't let him see the practice you've had. Woman spends much time in thinking what she would do were she a man, while man spends much time knowing what he would do if he were a woman. Some folk take pleasure in seeing that others have none. A married man fell in a vat of moonshine mash and drowned, but the papers said he died in good spirits. Love is an itching of the heart, a place where you can't scratch. Girls, you can always tell if a man really loves you. If he says, "I love you," and drawls it out as if it hurt him, he's silver-plated goods. If he says it as if he were ordering a glass of beer, that shows he is sizing up your dad's pocketbook. But if he says, "I love you," and hugs as if he'd never let go, and flushes up like a lobster, nail him. He's it. A telephone retort. "Operator, if you will give me this number, I will give you a nice sweet kiss." Go to it, kid. I am standing on the receiver. High explosive. We have received a report of a New Orleans newspaper man who took a big swig of white mule hooch and then backed up against a bale of cotton and said, "Come on, big boy, let's go." End of section 5.
Section 6 of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W. H. Fawcett. Adventures of Sven.
My dear Uncle Billy, I taking my pen in hand with my arm in sling from getting struck by lightning for $7.50. I been working a good moving picture they call Faded Overalls, and I been nature nobleman running round mountain about 16 mile and skull carry bull calf on my back, a skull pull out from landslide by hind feet. After a while it skull began to raining when Fowler turned fire hose on me. I skull be standing under weeping willow trees somewhere in Montana, just back of electric lights plant in Hollywood. When Fowler turn on hose, calf she getting mad and start to kick and beller. Director he holler, "Hold it!" And by golly, I bet your life I hold her like Dickens so she ain't yump away. They got to getting tree struck by lightning in big storm, so I skull die hero after I been cattle thiefed already. So director holler, "Ready!" and Fowler turn on using wire that been running from tree to light plant. Bull calf, she been wet from hose like me and yump round till she skull getting her tail caught in crotch of weeping willow tree and short circuit. So when Fowler throw in switch use, she run down calf's tail and hit me in me neck. So I see stars and moons and $670,000 worth of moving pictures for 2 minutes. And when I skull waking up, I been in mercenary hospital with blondie nurse girl giving me big shot homemade alcohol mixed with chili peppers. I swallowing quick and been be knock out, gain for 6 hour till I getting sober up. I meeting feller here named Yo Martin, they call Chimpanzee. He looking like feller I used to know in St. Paul named Murphy. Yo, he ain't talk much, but he looking like hell. He been quite feller in never going out and get fresh with girls. He been in Hollywood 2 year and not skull getting divorced yet. I get introduction to girl named Sweet Patootie working on set in Universal City. She skull come from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, because she look like Tara Barrels, and she ain't skull making only $9 week in laundry. I ain't know her only 10 minutes before she's swiping my watch and 60-cent lunch money, so I got to walk back to Los Angeles from Universal City. She making good all right, I bet your life. A rating scenario called Viking Carlson, the snooze king from Stockholm. I taking plot from my own life. And I pay scenario school $75 for book telling me how to getting rich writing play. After I write a play, Fowler that running school say he school sell him on commission. There been more ways to getting rich in Los Angeles than any other towns in United States. If feller ain't skull sol my play, I skull beat him up and make him my own picture. I play all parts and direct picture too. I can get in good camera from Sears Roebuck, so I ain't worry. Working pictures been pretty slack just now because most extra fellers been washing dishes in downtown restaurant to get fat for summer rush. Film companies been talking to cut down wages for actors because room rent been so high. Hotel keeper fellows like to get actors out of town so they're getting more room for Nebraska farmers with money. Small room in cellar with kitchen sink and towel with red fringe costs $185 first month and $320 second. Most actor fellers eating in cafeteria lunchroom. Every feller march around in line like looking on corpse at funeral and grab yunk off counter when you go by. After you skull eating, you skull sneak out and not wash dishes, but everything else you skull do self. Some fellers named Booze Brothers got a lot of help-yourself restaurants here, and one day it go in and ask for booze, and cashier girl getting mad and call police. She say this been decent place and we ain't skull selling only orange cider made from lemons. He got over to yon Salvation Army here, but think Ace Gold stay in moving picture business just so long some my money hold out. The woman I meet I told you about in last letter that been going to star me just so soon her husband go to Seattle, she been starring the other fellow now, so I get stung. I tell you more next month about how I come out in scenario writing game. I bet you when Mr. Griffithsy may play, he's gonna be surprised. Yours truly, Sven Peterson. Some women learn school teaching or dressmaking. Others cultivate natural assets. End of section 6. Read by Rob E. Brown.
Section number 7 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by KenK. Section 7. His wires were crossed and kisses a la carte. His wires were crossed. A superintendent of a Sunday school who had got some new books asked the minister to make an announcement after the service about the books. When the service was over, the minister had an announcement of his own. He said, "All those having children and wishing to have them baptized will bring them in the afternoon between 3 and 4 o'clock. The superintendent, who was hard of hearing, thinking the minister was talking about the books, rose and said, "All those having none and desiring some can be supplied by me, the ordinary ones at 15 cents, and the special ones with the red backs at 25 cents. He gorged himself with sausages, until he almost burst. Then said, "They hurt my stomach some, but hurt my liver worst." Kisses a la carte. "I saw you kiss sister last night." "Did you, Bobby? Here's a quarter for you." "Thanks. And I saw you kiss the maid in the hall." "Great Scott, here's $5. When a dog has fleas, he doesn't start drawing up an indictment against the universe. He starts to scratch. End of section 7. Read by KenK. June 23rd, 2023. Reddit, Ontario, Canada.
Section 8 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Devvon Eubanks. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Havana's Passe Charms. The author of this story, a Minneapolis preacher, recently returned from a tour of the West Indies for the Whiz Bang. And in this writing he depicts the gay carnival spirit which reigns in Havana because of America's prohibition. By Reverend Goldlightly Morrill, Pastor People's Church, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Many are the travelers, like Pantagruel, in search of the Dive Bouteille, holy bottle, and who believe in its oracular utterance, drink. The man who holds in veneration the memory of Noah notices on entering Havana that the harbor entrance is bottle-necked and well fortified with booze. The fountain of youth here is not water, but cascades of wine and beer, etc. However, one needs the purse of Croesus, for if you want to drink, you must pay what the bar wants to charge, a price as exorbitant as smuggled liquor brings in the States. If you remonstrate with the bartender, you may send for the manager, as my friend did, and have him say, "Don't bother me. Tell your troubles to a policeman." If you are mad and tired of Cuba, go to Guadeloupe and Martinique in the French West Indies, where the rent hog is unknown, where a good room rents for $7 a month, where a course dinner with a bottle of wine at the best hotel will cost you only 40 cents, where rum punch is 3 cents a glass, wine 5 cents, and the best brands of champagne $1.50 to $2 a quart. In Cuba, you pay $2.50 for a bottle of wine and $12 for a quart of champagne. Pascal wrote that man was the glory and scum of the universe. Much of the scum of the United States has floated to Havana. The lure of spiritual elixirs, there's a vermouth in town known as Vatanico, has brought a bum element to the island. Havana has become a convention city for crooks who frequent the racetracks, saloons, and gambling hells. Most appropriately has the outline of Cuba been compared to the hammer-headed shark. Fights and brawls are common. City jails are full of American drunks and toughs. Cuba has imported laborers from Haiti to raise cane, but the worst cane raisers have come from the United States. Stern said, "An Englishman does not travel to see Englishmen. An American does not care to journey here to meet such Americans." The tourist robbed right and left need have little fear of the Havana senorita stealing away his heart. Her beauty is largely mythical. As a rule, the Cuban woman looks as if she had used a barrel of flour to powder her face, and her body is built on barrel hoop lines. To powder she adds paint. Mama and her daughters are about the only paintings one finds in town. After viewing and reviewing these Spanish beauties, so inferior to our American beauties in the Garden of Love, one does not feel inclined to purchase the books sold here in the stores. The Art of Kissing in 12 Lessons, The Art of Caressing in 12 Lessons. Taken all in all, the Havana Angel is an adorable and durable inutility, an expensive luxury on which to hang fine clothes and diamonds. Pythagoras made it a rule to review every night what he had done during the day. Were she to follow his example, I fear she would soon be through, for she appears to be master of the art of doing nothing that is important. Havana harbors many ladies, of that species one calls ladies only between quotation marks. God made Cuba, but the devil invented some of Havana's pastimes. The Cuban is revolting in his pleasures as well as in his politics. Streets along the waterfront are lined by open bars and brothels brilliantly lighted. A mistake, because most of the inmates resemble female Calibans. The witchery of the old-time wanton is no more. With Flaubert, one laments the passing of the fille de joie. In olden times, she was beautiful when she walked up the steps leading to the temple, when on her shell-like feet fell the golden fringe of her tunic, or when she lounged among Persian cushions, twirling her collar of cameos and chatting with the wise men and philosophers. She was beautiful when she stood naked on the threshold of her cella, in the street of Sabura, under the rosin torchlight that blazed in the night, slowly chanting her Campanian lay, while from the Tiber came the refrains of the orgies. She was beautiful, too, in her old house of the Cité, behind the Gothic windows, among the noisy students, when without fear of the sergeants they struck the oaken tables with their pewter mugs. She was beautiful when she leaned over the green cloth and coveted the gold of the provincials. Then she wore high heels and had a small waist and a large wig which shed its perfumed powder on her shoulders, a rose over her ear, and a patch on her cheek. Fear not that she will ever return, for she is dead, quite dead. 10 miles from town is situated the notorious casino, which is trying to emulate Monte Carlo with its glare, gold, and girls. If you win anything there, you are lucky to get back to town with it without being murdered or robbed. Recently, a young man who made a fortune overnight here disappeared, and all they found of him was his leg. Not long ago, a stark naked woman was found dead near the casino. The mystery has not yet been cleared up. At the gate entrance of this palatial gambling hell, I noticed policemen taking the license number of every auto that arrived to keep track of the chauffeurs, many of whom are crooks and cutthroats. If you do survive and reach Havana in safety, the size of your bill makes you feel very automobilious. Sad but true, it is easier to locate some of our United States diplomatic officials at the casino at night than in their offices during the day. The Havana Oriental Racetrack has a bad name even among sports. There was no exhibition of fine, fast horses or fast time, simply a fast set who threw the races to the bettors who gave the most graft. Boozing, betting, and profanity were the characteristics of the human race at the horse race. Yet foreign literary, dramatic, and musical reviews are crowded out of newspaper columns for daily ads and write-ups on the elevating amusement of the casino and racetrack. One cannot make an inventory of paradise in Havana without mentioning the carnival. At the Malecon, I watched the señoritas throw kisses and confetti. The confetti was 6 inches deep, and I wondered how it would be cleared up till I remembered the number of rakes there were on the boulevards. The Cuban's idea of heaven is an endless Mardi Gras where he may throw stardust confetti and waltz with the angels. However, the Havana Carnival lacks the spontaneity and gaiety of Nice, Venice, and Martinique, it being more of a fashion show. The populace takes little note of time save in the dance. All society from A to Z throng the theaters and clubhouses where they revolve like automata on a music box. I witnessed one ball in a small hall where 6 policemen were stationed to keep the dancers within the bounds of decency. Cuba has declared a moratorium. Yet the people are neither paying each other nor the United States, and act as if sugar were up to 25 cents a pound. They cry for financial aid, yet I witnessed a Sunday carnival where $75,000 was foolishly thrown away like so much confetti. The Havana youth is a dissipated dude who improves his mind by strutting and staring on the piazzas and accosting women with insulting looks and words. With him, cursing passes for rhetoric. His time and money are well spent at racetrack, cockpit, roulette table, and the harlot's house. He is familiar with all liquors except the stimulating wine of progress. God has made Cuba beautiful, with her altar-like mountains, smile of the sea, waving palms, fragrant fruits and flowers, and sweet cane fields. But Satan has entered this Eden and left his slimy trail. Cuba, the pearl of the Antilles, has been trampled under the hoofs of human swine. Too often, the C in Cuban character stands for cupidity, carnality, crookedness, cabals, charlatanism, caramba cursing, and contempt for Americans. Lot left Sodom and was saved. As I sailed away from Havana, I said with Solomon, "Vanity, vanity, all is Havanity." End of Section 8.
Section 9 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Anthony Will. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. The Garter. Consider the garter. It toileth not, neither doth it sin. It stretcheth far, yet giveth not. When comes night, it relaxeth. Yet morn finds it willing and ready, yea, happy to take up its appointed task. It hath no visible means of support. It upholds its end and other things. It is the tie that binds. Without it our lives would indeed be loose-lived. It enters far into the career of women, yet blows no horn about it. It hideth modestly. Once off the shelf of a blatant shop, it retireth for life, and man sees it no more. All the world knocks a knocker. End of section 9.
Section 10 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Questions and Answers. Dear Captain Billy, I am writing a scenario on Army life. Could you suggest an appropriate title? Amy Tour. How about Rumors from the Seventh Pew? All soldiers will appreciate it, I'm sure, and especially the Pugitites from Seattle who lived on the Sound. Dear Captain Bill, a friend and myself have an argument and we wish you to settle it. Where hangs the sign, "Don't leave your seat until the machinery stops running"? Sultan of Kokomo. Well, your Sultanic Majesty, the only place I recall having seen such a sign was on a merry-go-round, but it might also have appeared on our Robbinsdale trolley. Dear Captain Billy, how can I become adept in the shimmy dance? Flora Daw. Walk fast, stop quick, continue this motion. Dear Captain Billy, why do girls roll their stockings? Noah Count. Because they're afraid the teddy bears will chew the tops off of them. Dear Uncle Billy, while sitting in front of a bathhouse at Hot Springs, I fell asleep and soon found myself swinging in a hammock in a shaded nook of the dells of Wisconsin. Nearby sat a young lady magnificently gowned in a low neck and short skirt creation, with her feet on a sugar barrel reading to me from the Whiz Bang. In the distance came a short fat man carrying 2 bottles of Ham's Export just off the ice. I was about to reach for the bottle when the heavy hand of friend Mac touched me on the shoulder and awakened me. What I want to know is, what should I do to Mac for shaking me out of my dream before the climax? Ham's Spear. Your story reminds me of some of my dreams in the islands, when someone would always awaken me before the colonel had time to hand me the discharge papers I was dreaming about. I would suggest you pour hot water on Mac next time he slumbers. He will then dream of entering the gates of hell. Dear Skipper, I'm in love with a fat girl and she insists on sitting on my lap. Advice, please. Can it be good? Suggest that you place an ironing board over the arms of a chair. You could then hold her on your lap indefinitely and not get tired. Dear Skipper Bill, can you give me the name of a rare and almost extinct bird? School Johnny. Old Crow. Dear Skipper Billy, give me a definition of falling in love which, in the spring, turns a young man's fancy, etc. Bob Wire. Love is a feeling that you feel when you feel you're going to feel a feeling that you've never felt before. Dear Captain Billy, what is a whiffenpoof? Geological. A whiffenpoof, Geo, is a small fish that swims backward to keep the water from running into its eyes. Dear Captain Billy, can you give us a new phrase or word to describe the bedroom movies in which ladies are shown in the filmy robes de nuit, etc.? Screen hound. How would it be to call such pictures filmies? Dear Captain Billy, would you recommend walking on an empty stomach as an aid to digestion? Horace Derves. Walking on an empty stomach is excellent for indigestion, but be careful who you walk on. Dear Skipper Billy, what is your idea of the height of imagination? Ross Field. To sit on a cake of ice and have someone throw Limburger cheese in your face and imagine you are having a sleigh ride. Dear Bill, who was the best known enlisted man in the United States Army? Count Lehman. Joe Latrine. Dear W.B. Bill, I am a bashful young man. How can I have a girl? Bourgeois. Wiser men than I have puzzled over this question and never found a solution. However, I don't see why you want one. Dear Captain Bill, who is it that attracts all the town girls to the depot and who always suspects the playing card manufacturers and who causes the farmer to load his shotgun? Wat Ho. Traveling men, of course. God bless 'em. Dear Skipper, what is considered the safest place on a battleship? Auto, no. I believe if I were a sailor during an engagement, that I might find it necessary to seek the seclusiveness of the head. Dear Captain Bill, will you please tell me what is a nymph? Farmer Boy. A nymph, my boy, is a hasher with a good form who gets a job in a bathing girls' show, exhibiting her prowess. Democratic as he is, even the bootlegger treats his friend, the cop, from the bottle reserved for officers only. Limberkicks. Of sweethearts she has quite a few, they come from near and far, but the sailor who comes there each night, she calls her evenings tar. Won't you step into the parlor, said the spider to the fly. You bet your life I'll not, she said, and winked her other eye. You must think I'm easy, and that you are very sly. No knockout drops in mine, sir, for I'm a Spanish fly. Mary had a little lamb, a joyous youthful mutton, and when they played at parlor games, 'twas Mary got the button. Little Mary had a monkey on a painted stick. She sucked the paint all off one day. It made poor Mary sick. The boy sat on a moonlit deck, his head was in a whirl. His eyes and mouth were full of hair, and his arms were full of girl. End of section 10.
Section 11 of Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz-Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Whiz-Bang Editorials. The bull is mightier than the bullet. Life is a jest, and all things show it. I thought so once, but now I know it, is Gay's gloomy epitaph in Westminster Abbey. Did he receive this impression when he walked the streets of London? In his poem, Trivia, he tells us how to walk the streets, what to wear, the good people to address, the industrious ones to encourage, and the bad folks to pass by. Poe, in his Man in the Crowd, writes of the mass of people, and of beggar, tramp, and peddler, of the modest, pretty girl, of the women of the town like the statue in Lucian, with a surface of Parian marble, and with interior filled with filth, and of a man who walked all the crowded streets of London to get away from himself. De Quincey visits the Strand and says, "There one feels like a single wave in the total Atlantic, like one plant in the forest of America. The loneliness of his heart oppresses him with the crowd of unending faces, which have no friendly word for him, and he stands among hurrying figures of men, weaving to and fro, seeming like a mask of maniacs or pageant of phantoms. Stand on the corners, walk the streets of our own big cities, the capitals of the old world, or faraway countries, and behold the extremes of work and idleness, vice and virtue, sickness and health, innocent mirth and mad amusement. The people follow each other like the waves of a storm-tossed sea, and long after you have returned to your room, their walking, talking, laughing, and crying comes to you like the sad moan of the sea trying to be at peace. Nature is the place to study God in the book of field, mountain, and ocean. City streets are the place to study man in the sham, struggle, and sin of life. In the afternoon and evening, work gives way to play. All classes meet and mingle on the street, silk and cotton, glove and hard hand, auto and carriage. Revel in a democracy of delight. It is as necessary and natural to play as to work, and we must have rest, recreation, and rejoicing. At night, good people say an early good night, read their Bible, pray, put out the light, and snore. The devil begins just then to light his red lamp and lead his votaries into paths that too often end in disease of body, darkness of mind, and death of soul. Next morning, high society may hush up the disgrace and infamy, but guilty hearts know their own bitterness, and that evening's comedy has turned to morning's tragedy. Cities resemble a demon's brain, and the women of the night are its evil thoughts. There are too many wantons with powdered face, brazen look, and leering laughter, too many giddy girls with bare necks and shoulders, abbreviated skirts and hobbled feet walking the streets. If there were no girls, but there are more girls than boys, unnecessarily for wives and mothers to fill the vacancies caused by war, vice, and death. If there were no streets, but streets are essential as arteries of commerce, avenues of friendly meeting, and public parade. Morning, noon, and night we walk the street and see dishonesty, impurity, poverty, and disease, old and young jostling each other in seeming joy, but their telltale faces speak of a heart with a secret grave of shame, for they fear they may stumble over a ghastly grinning skull that will mock their joy. It will take more than art galleries, symphony concerts, parks, vice commissions, and grand jury reports to make the streets of city life clean and its boys and girls good citizens. The cure for sin is not a piece of court plaster to cover over wrong, but the gospel of hand, head, and heart that trains a child's soul, mind, and will in the way it should go so that when he is old, his steps will not depart from it. The merits and demerits of prohibition and the lawful consumption of the grand old hooch of the good old days have been subject to warm debates as far back as history can be traced. Here's one from Holinshed's Chronicles of 1577. We distinguisheth three sorts thereof, simplex, composita, perfectissima. Being moderately taken, saith he, it sloweth age, it strengtheneth youth, it helpeth digestion, it cutteth phlegm, it abandoneth melancholy, it relisheth the taste, it lighteneth the mind, it quickeneth the spirits, it cureth the hydropsy, it healeth the strangery, it pounceth the stone, it repelleth gravel, it puffeth away ventosity, it keepeth and preserveth the bed from whirling, the eyes from dazzling, the tongue from lisping, the mouth from snaffling, the teeth from chattering, the throat from rattling, the reason from stifling, the stomach from wombling, the heart from swelling, the belly from retching, the guts from rumbling, the hands from shivering, the sinews from shrinking, the veins from crumpling, the bones from aching, the marrow from soaking, and truly it is a sovereign liquor if it be orderly taken. Sir Walter Scott brought out the point that prohibition is as intemperate as drunkenness when he wrote, "Know, foolish Saracen," replied the Christian without hesitation, "that thou blasphemest the gifts of God. The juice of the grape is given to him that will use it wisely, as that which cheers the heart of man after toil, refreshes him in sickness, and comforts him in sorrow. He who so enjoyeth it may thank God for his wine cup as for his daily bread. And he who abuseth the gift of heaven is not a greater fool in his intoxication than thou in thine abstinence." Literary criticism is prone to make a great deal of bother about something that nobody cares two pins for, but sometimes, after the fabric of discussion has been thoroughly masticated, literary criticism does come down to bedrock and agree on one point which is incontrovertible. Among the subjects in which there is at present a universal agreement is the declaration that the American short story is the highest in perfection of any form of fiction that is put out in the world. Even the French, artists as they are, must take a back seat when it comes to the writing of tales that are brief and effective. It was the coruscating Ouida who emphasized the fact that flowers of the most exquisite beauty have their origin in the backyard heaps. Wonderful passion blossoms bloom gorgeously in surroundings that are the worst. The connection has never been established, but the coincidence is indisputable that the vaunted American short story, so clean morally and so harmless that the most modest virgin may read it without fear of being corrupted, is modeled upon the naughty story, conspicuously American in its construction, which would paralyze with horror any virgin who should happen to lend its recital an attentive ear. If one could but divest himself of his moral pulchritude, what paeans of praise would be poured forth in honor of that sinful and abhorrent thing, the naughty story. It is so brilliant, so forceful, so perfectly filed down and sharpened and polished until its edge is like the edge of a Damascus blade, and its point is finer than a needle's. Instinctively, the teller of such a tale flings aside every detail which is not absolutely essential to the narrative. There is not a word too much. There is not a trace of description which could be dispensed with. All is sacrificed to the exigency of brevity and to the final effect. End of section 11.
Section number 12 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. A Song Without Music. My sweetheart's a mule in the mine. I drive her without any line. On the bumper I sit, and tobacco I spit all over my sweet Jenny's spine. Our monthly motto. Wine, women, and song are the ruination of man, so I've cut out singing. Baseball Extra. The game opened with molasses at the stick and smallpox catching. Cigar was in the box with plenty of smoke. Horn played first base and fiddle on second base. Backed by corn in the field made it hot for the umpire. Apple, who was rotten. Axe came to bat and chopped. Cigars let brick walk and sawdust filled the bases. Song made a hit and 20 scored. Cigar went out and Balloon started to pitch, but went straight up. Then Cherry tried, but went wild. Old Ice kept cool in the game until he was hit by a pitched ball. Then you ought to have heard Ice scream. Cabbage had a good head and kept quiet. Grass covered lots of ground, and the crowd cheered when Spider caught a fly. Bread loafed on third base and bumped. Organ, who played a fast game, put out lightning. In the fifth inning, Wind began to blow what he could do. Hammer began to knock, and trees began to leave. The way they roasted peanuts was a fright. Knife was put out for cutting first base. Lightning finished pitching and struck out 6 men. In the ninth, Apple told Fiddle to take first base, and then Song made a hit. Trombone made a slide, and Meat was put out on the plate. There was a lot of betting on the game, but Soap cleaned up. The score was 1-0. Dorr said if he had pitched, he would have shut them out. Jonah to the Whale. How far are we from land? Whale. 3,000 miles. Jonah. Don't leave me, big boy. End of section 12. Read by Kimberly Wilson, New Braunfels, Texas, June 8th, 2023.
Section 13 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Jonathan Pruett. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Smokehouse Poetry. Introducing, in our July issue, George J. Liebst, alias the Hobo Jungle Poet of the West. Swing under number 9 of the Santa Fe line with our Knight of the Bumpers and Beams next issue and attend, in verse, Mr. Liebst Hobo Convention at Portland, Oregon. The author explains that the clickety-clack of the wheels on the rails, as he hears them from a swinging position on the rods of number 9, furnish the meter of his jungle poem. He tells you who was at the great convention. Texas Slim from Lone Star, and Jack the Katydid, Lonesome Lou from Kalamazoo, and the San Diego Kid. Put on your hobo clothes and travel with the Whiz Bang to the convention in the July issue. Next month, we're here to witness a great ball game in which the mighty Casey, who, as you may recall, struck out in the famous 9th and lost the same for Mudville, stages a comeback. Get ready for this next curve. It's a home run winner. Way down in the Garden of Eden was Adam with Eve on his knee. They never sat down, but just laid around in the shade of the old apple tree. The Island by the Sea. The following lines were written by a soldier of the United States Army while under restriction and confinement as a general prisoner at Alcatraz Island, California. There has been a dread about this military citadel, which is only equaled in the regular army by the Philippine prison Bilibid. Both are looked on as dark hellhole dungeons for the regular soldier. By an Alcatraz prisoner. Only a short ride from Frisco, on a rock resting out in the sea, a dungeon for soldier convicts, the home of the USDB. There we lay on our bed of hard metal, and think of our life among men, ever wishing our life was far distant, or could be lived over again. The death-colored chambers of madness, where all rights are evermore gone. Oh, there is no chance for freedom. Will we never again see the dawn? To be beaten and thrown in a dungeon, where the eyes of mankind are blind, to be left for dead in this hell-hole of dread, eternally losing your mind. So, hear the cries from the big house, from the souls who go down in the strife, where souls are evermore striving and thrown by the wayside of life. Oh, list to the cries from the inmates, assist in this hour that is blue, for the ones who are good and the ones who are bad are as good
or as bad as you. I was born in the spring, I died in the fall, but I won't tell St. Peter I lived in St. Paul. Dusty Holden's Philosophy. This life is but a game of cards, which every one must learn. Each shuffles, deals, and cuts the deck, and then a trump does turn. Some show up a high card, while others make it low, and many turn no cards at all, in fact they cannot show. When hearts are up we play for love, and pleasure rules the hour. Each day goes pleasantly along, in sunshine's rosy bower. When diamonds chance to crown the pack, that's when men stake their gold, and thousands then are lost and won by gamblers young and old. When clubs are trump, look out for war, on ocean and on land, for bloody deeds are often done when clubs are held in hand. At last turns the darkened spade, held by the toiling slave, and a spade will turn up trump at last and dig each player's grave. Department store gossip. Lizzie went out with that floor-walker clown. She said he was filled full of booze, and he made her get out and walk back to town, but there wasn't no mud on her shoes. Far be it from me to run a girl down, mistakes I will always excuse. But when one declares she walked back to town, I look for the mud on her shoes. Fifi Stillman's Lullaby. Rockabye baby, little Jay leads. Daddy has women more than he needs. Through a divorce I'll get lots of cash, because your dear daddy was a little too rash. The Poppy's Answer. Publication in the May issue of the Whiz Bang of In Flanders Fields has brought many requests for The Poppy's Answer, and thus, by special permission of the author, we offer it herein. By D.H. Wingett. In Flanders fields we poppies grow, that all the passing world may know. We herald peace, surcease of pain, for those who fought now live again, not in cold stone or mortal arts, but in the depth of loving hearts. We bloom afresh above our dead, our blossoms deck our heroes' bed, in Flanders field. Our Father called us into bloom, to deck and shield each soldier's tomb, to bask and glint in glory's stream, and fashion every soldier's dream. As 'neath our roots he sweetly sleeps, each poppy true her vigil keeps, and gently to the breeze she yields her soothing breath in Flanders fields. The Girl in the Garden. She lifts her skirts from danger with her left hand, while her right grasps the nozzle, and the stranger gets a very shocking sight. The neighbors gaze with rapture, and their interest daily grows, for they like to see her sprinkle, and they like to watch the hose. His eyelids closed, his breath came fast, his eager lips met hers. They parted ere the week had passed, she had a set of furs. Past, present, and future. You've heard the tale of Daphne of 100 years ago? You haven't? Well, I'll tell you. It's a thing you ought to know. Though pretty smart at most things, for her age was 17, she didn't know the proper way to wear a crinoline. For instance, when the winter winds came tearing through the town, she made the most ridiculous attempts to hold it down. And thus it was that often as she tacked across the street, the people got a view of her that wasn't only feet. You've heard, of course, the story of Daphne of today. You haven't? Well, I'll tell you. It's funny in a way. In spite of all the teachings of the Grundys and the Prims, she hasn't yet discovered how to cover up her limbs. For instance, though the crinoline perplexes her no more, she's in the same predicament precisely as before. And when she's sprinting for the bus with little time to lose, The people get a view of her that isn't only shoes. I hate, of course, to moralize, to lecture, or to prate, but troubles have their ending if the troubled only wait. And probably, if Daphne's good and patient as a saint, the skirt will pass to savages, and she will have their paint. And that will keep its proper place, whate'er her attitude, and satisfy the conscience of the most exacting prude, unless a rainstorm comes along that nothing does by halves, and then we'll get a view of her that won't be only calves. ABM. The Pleasure Pier, Ocean Park, California. One night as I strolled on the sand, the hour of 12 was near, by chance my wandering footsteps led me underneath the pier. Ye gods, the people I saw that night, as I strolled along my way. Behind each piling they rose like ghosts and silently faded away. I saw their men and women too, and friends I held most dear, and I turned and fled, for I wasn't alone as I strolled beneath the pier. Jeu d'Amour by Enid R. Clay. March winds were blowing when we met, and so the game was started. You blew a breath of love to me that left me broken-hearted. June roses scented all the air, the game seemed so worth winning. Their glory mingled with your kiss, and never thought it sinning. And still, for some, the March winds blow, and roses perish never. For all my play, and some must lose, forever and forever. Christmas at the Workhouse. It was Christmas at the workhouse, and the convicts gathered there. They were sitting at the table, partaking of their fare, when the warden quietly entered, and he shouted through the cells, "Merry Christmas, good old convicts!" And the convicts answered, "Bells!" Now, this made the warden angry, and he swore by all the gods, "You shall have no Christmas pudding. You're a dang big bunch of slobs." When spoke the oldest convict, with a voice that was not pure, "Just take that Christmas pudding and shove it in the sewer." By Dan Moriarty. Underneath the bar-room floor. 'Twas a balmy summer evening, and a goodly crowd was there, but it wasn't in the bar-room, for the bar-rooms now are bare. The Maiden's Lament. That Perkins boy is awfully slow, parlez-you? That Perkins boy is awfully slow, parlez-vous? That Perkins boy is awfully slow, he believes me when I tell him no. Inky-dinky, parlez-vous? A Lady's Query by W.D. Nesbit. Is it ladylike to giggle? Is it ladylike to wink? Is it ladylike to ride a horse astraddle? Is it ladylike to wiggle? Is it ladylike to drink? Is it ladylike upon the beach to paddle? Is it ladylike to mutter? Is it ladylike to stare? Is it ladylike to do those fancy dances? Is it ladylike to sputter? Is it ladylike to swear? Is it ladylike to use expressive glances? Is it ladylike to gurgle? Is it ladylike to joke? Is it ladylike to boast of being wealthy? Is it ladylike to burgle? Is it ladylike to smoke? Is it ladylike to know that you are healthy? Is it ladylike to shiver? Is it ladylike to weep? Is it ladylike to walk through forests shady? Is it ladylike to quiver? Is it ladylike to peep? Is it ladylike to be a little lady? End of section 13.
Section 14 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by KenK. Bud's Bundle of Bunk by Bud L. McKillips. "My," said the old lady after her first night auto ride into the country, "the people who fix automobiles will make a lot of money tomorrow." Every few blocks there was a car standing with nobody around it. It was so dark that I couldn't see if they were smashed up. But I guess the people must have walked back to town. Omar up to date. What is it that the bootlegger buys? One half so vicious as the stuff he sells? Blank verse. Emil asked Clara to take a walk with him and pick flowers, but Clara's brother came along, so they picked flowers. Mrs. Bluelaw laid down her newspaper with an angry snort. I see where they are talking about reviving the Passion Play. Another of those disgraceful shows, I suppose. How much, asked John Burroughs in his Daily Nature column, does it cost to set a tree out in the street? Some festive friends of ours once set a bartender out in the street in the day's BP, and if memory is correct, it cost them $10 and costs. People who ride in our car never have to walk back home, advertises the St. Louis Automobile Agency. The girl in the house next door says a hat pin gives her the same assurance. If there's one secluded spot that I would like to own and fence about, 'tis that small plot where my wild oats were sown. She asked him if he'd take a seat, but he, his blushes hiding, replied that he preferred to stand, for he'd been horseback riding. The porcupine may have his quills, the elephant his trunk, but when it comes to common sense, my money's on the skunk. End of section 14. Read by KenK, June 25th, 2023, Reddit, Ontario, Canada.
Section 15 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Devvon Eubanks. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Film Feast Fights. Ah, now the dainty damsels of the screen have the excitement for which their artistic temperaments crave. For the edification of the filmland folk, Los Angeles hotels have introduced the prize fight as a dinner attraction, partly supplanting the dinner dancing. And here we have diminutive B.B. Daniels cavorting at one of these film fight feasts, rubbing elbows with a fat kid McCoy, whose barefoot partner, as Richmond states, put on her shoes and walked out. Society prize fights are the latest in Los Angeles and Pasadena. The winter tourists, society people, and so on have fallen. Didn't Anne Morgan set the example in New York? Main dining rooms have been turned to prize rings, where, during a lull in the supper dance, the fighters, their seconds, water bottles, cuspidors, and other necessary adjuncts are led forth. No, prize fighters don't generally have cuspidors. They generally spit in the water bucket or on the floor. Anyhow, they spit. They can't help it. The swell hotels of Pasadena and Los Angeles already have staged their preliminary fistic functions. There is no bunk about the fights, at least so far as appearance and appurtenances are concerned. The men wear regulation ring clothes, and, as everyone knows, this means they can't wear much more than most of the women present, who shriek with delight and false alarm at the thud of brawny fists on hairy breasts and bloody noses. Whiz Bang is not long-haired, consequently can't be against a good boxing contest or a fight, whatever it is they call them. But one may entertain an opinion that some things were meant for men, and if there is anything a man is better fitted for, or can do better, than women, for heaven's sake, let him do it. The Alexandria Alec, as it popularly is known, initiated the fad in this burg. The society editors must have been there for one thing, judging from a elite galaxy of names which appeared next day. Kid McCoy also was there, appearing somewhat better in his tux than most of the non-athletic-looking gentlemen present. The kid emerged recently from his 9th, or was it his 15th, matrimonial experiment. He married a dancer of the films, a barefooted one. But evidently she put on her shoes and walked out. The literary lights were somewhat in evidence. Guy Price, Eddie Moriarty, and H.M. Walker, with the assumed or naturally bored air that seems to mark the popular newspaper sporting writers, were taking in the innovation, or being innovated in the taking in, whichever it was. Moriarty and Walker said who won the fights, and from their dour looks, one would never judge they write funny titles for Seaman and Lloyd. Tom Mix jumped into the ring as referee. Those who watched paid well for it. But there was dinner, of course, and a dance thrown in. Bebe Daniels was one of the first on the floor. Not that Bebe seemed overly excited about it. But the proud-looking young man who trotted her out seemed not without fear that his appearance with the fair Bebe might be overlooked if he didn't get an early start upon the ballroom boards. But Bebe was worth looking at. Incidentally, one of the few modest-looking women on the floor. They say she is stuck up. They say that about most of the really stellar female attractions of the screen. But the insider opines that Bebe's bored look combines a sense of humor and the common sense of a young girl who finds that the glitter and night adulation are mostly 18-karat bunk. Yet Bebe danced and danced. As we have said before, society doesn't know what to do about the picture stars, especially if they are starettes. But to miss seeing them, so one can talk about what they wore and whom they were with, that would be ultra ignoramus, as one might aptly say. Just what a bunch of supposedly high-bred society women, Miss Morgan to the contrary, can see in the spectacle of two men slamming each other around the ring passeth, no doubt, some portion of the male element. Sounds like we are getting sermony. Far be it from us. There are worse things than women in evening garb gushing over mostly naked men fighting in the main dining room of our swell hotels. One thing about Mary and Doug, they are fairly exclusive. Some of the younger stars might do well to emulate them. Yet, perhaps before a star becomes a luminous planet, it must do its sparkle, cast its lesser light, until the fact that it does not glow at every gay party can cause more comment than the mere presence thereat would cause. Mary and Doug are becoming more talked of because they stay home than because they step out. Of course, Mary and Doug have something to chat of among themselves again, now that Nevada is talking marriage annulment again. We still remain firm in our predictions of months ago that Nevada has more talk than annulment in her system, so far as the Fairbanks family is concerned. An Arkansas Honeymoon. A young newly married couple boarded a through train bound for Little Rock to spend the honeymoon. The young man at once began looking for the Pullman conductor, it being a night train. Finally, he found that official and began. "Say, mister, me and my wife here just got married, and we want the best accommodations you got on this train." "You are looking for a berth, I presume?" queried the conductor. "Thunderation, no!" shouted the irate groom. "Didn't I tell you that me and my wife just got married?" A London man who went to Dublin to join the Royal Irish Constabulary was arrested as insane. In view of the present condition of Ireland, the evidence against him seems conclusive. End of section 15.
Section 16 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by oogiesragdoll. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Pasture Pot Pourri. Yoo-hoo, Skinny, come on over and bring your own bottle. There was an old man from Trenton who gnashed his false teeth till he bit 'em. When asked what he'd lost and what they had cost, he replied, I don't know, I just rent 'em. Open your mouth and let the moon shine in. Never miss anything that's been saved. It's better to be brought up on a bottle than to be brought down by one. A small boy's idea of greatness is to be able to lick another boy a size larger. Lip to lip, nose to nose, flippity-flop, away she goes. When your good home brew is old and cold, call 'em up and revive my soul. Story for the children. Oh, chase me, kid, I'm a lollipop. Ah, Guam, don't you think I'm an all-day sucker? Would you? I would if I could, but I can't. I wish I could, but I can't. 'Twill do me no good to think what I'd do if I could. I might, but I probably shan't. Irate father. Dorothy, has that young man gone yet? No, but I've got him going. Second stanza. Getting married. Meet me at 11 and by 12 will be 1. Getting divorced. Meet me at 12 and by 1 will be 2. A raisin and wine saves time. Famous army songs. The larger the spoon, the louder the noise. Gus, our hired man, says he was engaged to a girl who had a wooden leg, but he broke it off. Latest popular song. Babes in the Wood by James A. Stillman. End of section 16. Section 17 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by oogiesragdoll. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Classified ads. Want one, girls? From Minneapolis Journal. For sale, 1920 Mormon Chummy. There must be a reason. From the Warren, Ohio Tribune. Wanted, gentleman I spent Sunday evening with to write me at my address in the office where I'm employed. I couldn't act different from what I did. ... Chicago has preferences. From Chicago Tribune. To rent. Studio apartment with private bath. Married couple preferred. 58 East Elm Street. Oak Cliff's Secret. From Dallas Dispatch. Lost. Monday in Oak Cliff. 1 Spencer corset, slightly used. Suitable reward. Here's an easy job. From Tampa Times. Wanted, gas engine man on twin party boat. Little pay, lots of fun, no work. Phone 71-042. Soda eye, do you? Give me a plain soda without any flavor. What kind of flavor would you like it without? Oh, I like it without vanilla flavor. Sorry, sir, I'm out of vanilla. You will have to have it without chocolate, sir. Where they rattle. 2 little girls were playing on the street, and a well-dressed lady passed them with a swish and a whirl. By the noise, it was evident that she wore a silk petticoat. What makes that noise? Whispered one little girl with a wondering look. Shh, said the other child in a low voice. Don't you know she's got money? Rich folks always rattle and smell good. Franklin's dope. When skirts and waistlines meet as one, 'twill be as when the world begun, and in fig leaves again we'll roam, and wonder still why the men leave home. The Anti-Cigarette Crusaders. I can't understand how men can put those nasty pipes and cigarettes to their lips, she mourned, and then bent to kiss the little bundle of life in her lap. And the poodle dog, sympathizing, snuggled closer against its mistress's swan-like neck and wagged its little tail. End of section 17.
Section 18 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Anthony Will. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. Our Rural Mailbox. He led in prayer. Our Rural Mailbox. Smokehouse Friends. Ye editor has received many calls for the following poems and would appreciate receipt of correct copies of them. Johnny and Frankie, Arkansas, and the prose of the Irishman lecturing with lantern slides the story of Cleopatra. Anodyne. Snow again, Anna. I don't get your drift. Mickey Finn. There is nothing to the rumor that the girls will wear blacksmith's aprons for bathing suits this summer. Howie Heva. The skin game is not the name of a play. It is a profession indulged in by beauty doctors. Mac. If the brass finger bowls are not large enough, would suggest that bushel baskets be used. Shimmy Dancer. If you do, we'll take off our jumper and overalls. Kitty Corn. I can't place you, but I knew your father. Popcorn. He led in prayer. An old railroad man was converted, as the story goes, and was asked to lead in prayer. Here is the way he worked it. O Lord, now that I have flagged thee, lift my feet off the rough road of life and plant them safely on the deck of the train of salvation. Let me use the safety lamp known as prudence. Make all couplings in the train with the strong link of thy love. And, Heavenly Father, keep all switches closed that lead off to sidings, especially those with a blind end. O Lord, if it be thy pleasure, have every semaphore block along the line show the white line of hope, that I may make the run of life without stopping. And, Lord, give us the 10 Commandments as a schedule time, and when my train shall have pulled into the great dark station of death, may thou, the superintendent of the universe, say with a smile, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Come up and sign the payroll and receive your check for eternal happiness. End of section 18.
Section 19 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. A Robbinsdale salad. A young chicken undressed, a little pep, lettuce. Just like Old Crow. Once again the husband came staggering home late. "Oh, John, have you been drinking again?" sobbed his wife as she caught a whiff of beer. "No, dearie, you wronged me. I've been eating frog's legs, and you smell the hops." It Pays to Advertise by Oxnard Pete. It isn't necessary to read magazine stories anymore. The editor tells you all about them in eye-catchers at the beginning. They read like this. Mary's Garter by R. Uberneck. A snappy and re-elastic love story that stretches the imagination to the breaking point. No Oni Swa stuff here. 100 to 1 by N.O. Chance. A racetrack story. Like a gambler's watch chain, it has a charm that holds the eye. Frozen Tears by P. North Poole. Returning after years spent in the far north, Jon Snow's wife gives him a cold welcome. He finds that Eskimo maidens may have cold feet, but warm hearts. A tale of polar bears, whale blubber, seal blubber, and plain blubber. Don't fail to read Way Down Yeast by Holmes Brewer in our next issue. Mr. Brewer's stories are as funny as a barrel of monkey wrenches, his wit as spontaneous as a fire sale in Goldstein's clothing store, and as unique as a drink of real whiskey. Down in the Deep by Professor Hugh Drinkwater, a scientific article on the peculiarities of the Zoanatharia actina, Mesembryanthemum, Tiala crassicornis, and other anemones. Too deep for anyone but a highbrow to wade through. Lucy's Looseness by E. Strong Onion, a story with a smile, some tears, and seeming to breathe throughout the fragrance of old Bermuda. End of section 19.
Section 20 of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W.H. Fawcett. The Way with Men, by Warford Frederick. A sweet conceit is its own excuse. I think, don't you? I hope you do. 2 neat, small feet, and a shoestring loose. I bend, don't you, before that shoe? 1 glance at the shoe, and 2 at the silk, and an ankle showing as white as milk. And I tie a knot that will slip again, for that is ever the way with men. It is a rare man, girls, who shakes the furnace as he shakes his shoulders. Verily, much Mazuma goeth over the bar, the cash register knoweth not of. There are lots of men who treat tomorrow and treat yesterday, but never treat today. Jest Jokes and Jingles, that girl you lost. Long though a man recalls the achievements of his life, yet it is quite often the little things he failed to achieve that linger longest in his memory, even after he has forgotten her name and whether her eyes were brown or blue. The Garbage Blues. Rocks in the mountains, fish in the sea. A garbage man's daughter made a dump out of me. Remorse. Those dry martinis were too much for me. Last night at 12 I felt immense. Today I feel like 30 cents. But it is a poor time for mirth and laughter, the cold gray dawn of the morning after. I went to a dance with a girl named Nora. We danced, and we danced on the flora. I heard a rip, and I knew by chance that Nora had lost her desire to dance. A modern man's prayer. Oh, please give me a woman who could make real beer. It's all right to shoot the bull, provided you don't give a bum steer. A sun dodger. They sat in the park, out there in the dark, and the chaperone thought it quite shocking. She found him all right, for she saw in the night the radium clock on each stocking. We clipped this from Fayetteville Press. Sure is tough these days to try to tell a girl a good joke and have her say, "Never mind, I read Whiz Bang myself." It wasn't the drink that killed poor John, nor a sight that took his breath, but he read a Whiz Bang, so 'tis said, and laughed himself to death. An Alabama ad. Wanted, boy for bakery, must come well bred, an early riser, born in the yeast, a good mixer, and will get his dough every Saturday night. When Phyllis lets me tie her shoe, my glad heart sings, indeed. I do declare I wouldn't care were she a centipede. Rosy Roses of Army Days. A Camp Dix NJ shavetail was giving his men a talk on personal hygiene. Finishing his verbal exploitation, he said, "And men, profit by my example. When I finish drilling in the afternoon, the first thing I do is to take a bath and shave. Then, when I retire, I feel rosy and cheerful." Whereupon one of his disciples emerged from the ranks with his hand raised to a salute, saying, "Beg pardon, Lieutenant, but we ain't got any rosy." There was a young person named Willie, whose actions were what you'd call silly. He went to a ball, dressed in nothing at all, pretending to represent Chile. Prohibition proverbs: no brew venture, no brew have. Empty flask never won fair lady. A case in the cellar is worth 2 in the brewery. Much falls between the hip and the lip. He that reckons without his cellar must reckon again. A fool's flask is soon empty. As you brew, so shall you be respected. One good sip deserves another. If you drink before you try, you may repent before you die. Some female types: the alarm clock type, shrill voice, large hands, and a plain face. The wristwatch type, small-framed, handsomely embellished, very erratic. The mantelpiece type, pretty features with nothing reliable behind them. The Big Ben type, hardest to face in the morning. The wall type, very fancy, having a good swing, and goes cuckoo without attention. The 8-day type, steady and reliable, but once started stops for nothing less than an axe. The Ingersoll type, goes through fire, flood, famine, and earthquake without changing in consistency, yet once lost, its owner doesn't think it worth the price of an advertisement. The big girls who have little brothers, who always run and tell their mothers, whate'er they hear and see, know well, in life 'tis the little things that tell. A pretty girl jumps to the conclusion that every man she meets wants to kiss her, and the wonder of it all is that she is right. Circumstantial: Hattie, do you think he loves her? Mattie: my dear, I know it. I saw them come out of the study after the last dance, and her hair was a sight. William's Purple Cow. Sweethearts a la Carte by Jane Gates. Tommy was a butcher. He had a cutting way. Johnny was a burglar, for he stole my heart away. Jimmy was a cowboy. He roped me in for fair. Dick was an aviator, so I bade him take the air. Teddy was a sailor. He bought my ring on sale. Jerry was a beer fiend. It made me turn quite pale. A tennis champ was Nicky, but his racket made me sick. Then came red-haired Georgie, and he surely was a brick. Jackie was a card sharp. He often held my hand. But give me Bill. He's just a bear. Oh boy, he hugs so grand. Eat less, breathe more. Talk less, think more. Ride less, walk more. Worry less, work more. Clothe less, bathe more. Waste less, give more. Preach less, practice more. End of section 20. End of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, Volume 2, Number 21, June 1921, by W. H. Fawcett.